This story is based on alleged accounts without concrete evidence and may be viewed as science fiction. It is presented for entertainment and discussion purposes only, and we do not endorse or support any claims made. Viewers should conduct their own research and form their own opinions. In a previous episode, CIA's secret MK-Ultra program was used to screen people suitable for working at the Dulce facility and keeping secrets. And in subsequent long-term work, these people were constantly brainwashed. In this video, we will continue this conversation. Colonel, after your field investigation, do you think that the information provided to you was being withheld? No, I actually think they gave us too much. At the time, I wasn't clear on what mission we were about to undertake. And I was wondering why they were exposing us to so many secrets. We first went to Kirtland Air Force Base, and then took a helicopter to the Dulce facility. Later, I found out that there were roads that could lead to the facility. But due to the emergency status, the area within several miles was under military control and no one was allowed to approach. Kirtland Air Force Base was established in 1941 and is located in New Mexico. Please continue. Okay. The report I have in hand states that in 1940, the U.S. Army accidentally discovered a multi-level underground facility on Archuleta Mesa, which was about the size of a small city. At the time, they were searching for a suitable location for nuclear tests in New Mexico. Wasn't our nuclear program started with the Manhattan Project in 1942? Of course not. The concept of atomic energy was proposed by scientists in 1938, and in 1939, President Roosevelt convened a committee of physicists, led by Lyman Briggs, called the Uranium Committee, responsible for atomic energy research. These are all public history, and you can find information to read. The discovery of the Dulce facility in the report is closely related to the development of atomic energy. The troops that discovered the facility were called the Murik Expedition, as they were selected from Murik Army Airfield in California to search for a suitable nuclear test site. These people made one of the greatest discoveries in human history when they discovered the Dulce facility, but the U.S. government covered it up. And these people either died in battle or were imprisoned, with no chance to declare what they found. Died in battle? Do you mean they started a war when they discovered the facility? Yes, shortly after they started the battle. The air base discovered anomalies, and then quickly covered up the truth on a large scale, raising the secrecy level, making the relatives and friends of these soldiers think they died while carrying out other missions. Air base? Wasn't it the Army that discovered the facility? At that time, the United States did not have an Air Force, and the so-called Air Force Base was under the jurisdiction of the Army. If you have no further questions, I will continue. When the troops entered the facility, they found that the top floor was mostly abandoned. These people were experts in geology, and their original goal was to find a nuclear test site. So exploring the cave was easy for them. In the first level, they first discovered many ancient artifacts scattered next to some modern-looking but never-before-seen machines. The walls were covered with screens resembling radar screens. And there were some devices that looked like cipher machines or typewriters, but were not suitable for human use. The soldiers could not understand what they had found, and they recorded that the precision of these devices far exceeded our country's technological level, and may be the latest invention of the Germans. They made similar recordings everywhere, extremely sophisticated electronic televisions, possibly made in Germany. The screens covering the walls were very flat and felt like some kind of glass when touched. But there seemed to be liquid inside. In addition, the soldiers found hundreds of thick black cables, and the wires inside these cables were very fine and showed no signs of damage even when bent. They then began to look for the source of the cables, and found that they led to deeper levels, and strangely, many of these top-level cables had been cut by human hands. Someone asked at the time, "Where is the power source for these devices?" as they did not find any form of power generator. What was even more eerie was that they also found some Indian blades, more than 100 arrows, and some bows at the entrance, which were weapons commonly used by Indians. There were also some Colt revolvers and Winchester repeating rifles, with some ammunition scattered around. This evidence suggests that humans may have been here before. The commander wrote that everything in this place seemed out of place, as these futuristic-looking machines and these ancient weapons were placed together. They also found several Indian corpses, and he believed that the clothing on these bodies was from before the 1840s. While the Colt revolver was a common weapon in 1870. After recording their findings, they returned to camp to rest. The next day, they began to explore deeper levels, and found some patterns on the walls that felt like a kind of metal. But when they touched it, it left a glowing mark, something they had never seen before. There were also rectangular windows, emitting purple fluorescence, and felt very cold to the touch. In addition, the soldiers also found some remains, but they were small in size, with only large skulls and eye sockets. There were also Indian remains, but they could not determine the era. Like and subscribe. It looks like the Indians chased these people here. The room here was the same as the upper level, with many machines and equipment, but all were covered in thick spider webs and dust. The commander of Mulek believed that with their current capabilities, they could not obtain more information and requested the team to leave. They later found some ultra-thin metal sheets in deeper areas, which they called tablets, with some writing on them. The archaeologist they brought in initially found that the writing on the tablets was similar to ancient Sumerian cuneiform, but he could not identify what it was. Later, I learned that the U.S. military had decrypted this type of alien writing after years of research. It is worth mentioning that the root of this writing is the same as human cuneiform, which was also used by the Akkadian and Ugaritic civilizations with similar writing structures. Colonel, can you talk about the indigenous people? Sure. We discovered through the tablets that there are many races, but only one of them occupied this facility. Our understanding of them comes mainly from the tablets, which provide us with their history and why they needed to hide in this cave. To put it simply, there were 4 types of aliens that once existed on Earth. The first one is called the progenitors, who were aliens from Zeta Reticuli. The second one is the Anunnaki, who were descendants of the progenitors, with genetically enhanced traits. The third one is the Astra albus, also known as the Astra people, who were offspring of the Anunnaki, with further genetic modifications. And finally, the Greys, whose genetics have no connection with the progenitors. Of course, there are also us humans, whose genetics have been modified as well. Greys? Are you talking about the aliens that often appear on TV? Basically yes, the Greys hide in underground caves, while the Astra people have adapted to the surface environment and live among human society. Why did they hide in the cave in Dulce? This story goes way back. The progenitors were a group of advanced alien beings who originally lived in Zeta Reticuli and later migrated to the Sirius system, where they occupied 2 planets. About millions of years ago, they discovered the solar system and migrated to Mars. They lived on Mars for 100,000 years, but due to asteroid impacts, they had to abandon Mars and come to Earth. At that time, the Earth's environment was not suitable for the progenitors. Their metabolism required not only oxygen but also a certain amount of helium, which was scarce in the Earth's atmosphere. And the carbon dioxide content was also insufficient. In order to continue their bloodline, they genetically modified themselves to adapt to the Earth's atmospheric environment. And thus the Anunnaki were created to facilitate their survival. The Anunnaki also created a servant population called Eloa, which we refer to as the Greys. These Greys were like slaves to the Anunnaki, constantly collecting resources and providing labor. After living on Earth for about 1,000 years, the Anunnaki discovered a genetic defect in themselves. They still could not fully adapt to the Earth's environment, so they started another round of genetic modifications and created a new population called the Astra albus people. This term is directly transliterated from the tablets, and its origin is unknown. Before the Anunnaki disappeared, they warned the Astra people to be wary of the Greys, not to let their numbers become too large, and not to have too much contact with human beings. The Astra people followed these instructions, but their genetics still could not adapt to the Earth's environment. In order to survive, they chose to interbreed with the indigenous people of Earth. And this attempt was successful. The Astra people have survived to this day, but their bloodline is no longer pure. These are the people who control all power, money, and status in the world today. They are the offspring of aliens and humans. And you may have read about this in many conspiracy theories. But I'm telling you that it's all true. They are strictly descendants of arranged marriages. and all reproductive behavior is screened. They have formed an internal circle and do not accept outsiders. It may sound like a conspiracy theory, but it was the dissident Greys who told us about how these alien hybrids survived in human society. The alien bloodline has now been cleared by 99%, but the remaining genetics still keep them at a distance from humans. Can you talk about the genetic issue of the Greys? Are they related to humans? They have no connection with humans at all. They are not related to the progenitors either, but rather the genetic makeup of another species from the progenitor's original planet. According to our research, they seem to have similar genetic segments to certain insects on Earth. The genetics of humans have also been modified by the Astra people, and we have some extraterrestrial genes. According to the tablets of the Greys, they rebelled against the Astra people about 100,000 years ago. But they failed and were driven underground. In fact, they had settled in North America as early as 26,000 years ago. Their history spans tens of thousands of years? No, much longer. Their chronicle goes back to 1 million years. I know it's hard to believe, but when I first encountered this knowledge, I questioned the history, religion, and beliefs of humans. This is normal. Stay tuned for the next episode where we will resume our discussion on the Dulce files.